She didn't draw toys or castles. She drew a refrigerator always full. When a stranger saw it on her bedroom wall, he realized the hunger wasn't the most painful secret she was hiding, and the truth would change every life forever. Rain drums a steady warning against Gideon Vale's windshield as he idles at the curb. The address on the crumpled paper looks like a dare not directions. 19 Juniper Lane. The house is small, tired, honest, peeling paint. A porch that sags like it's exhaling. A chain-link fence leaning into the wind as if it's trying to listen. Gideon adjusts his disguise, scuffed boots, a thrift store jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. He practices a calm face in the rearview mirror. It doesn't fit. For 3 months he has played researcher to knock on doors that smell like instant coffee and quiet worry. Officially, he's collecting stories for a community resilience study. Unofficially, he's hunting for the last person who ever loved him without conditions, his brother. 8 years ago, Gideon and his brother Evan slammed a door on each other, pride on one side, silence on the other. Since then, no holidays, no calls, no forgiveness. Just money multiplying while something inside him thins out. 2 weeks ago, a private investigator slid a file across Gideon's desk. Death certificate. Name changed. Ohio. Gideon's throat tightens. He tells himself to breathe. Then he steps out into the rain. The porch boards creak under Gideon's weight like they're counting his sins. He knocks 3 soft taps. Footsteps. Quick light. The door opens to Maris Harlow, 32, hair tied back and a messy ponytail, scrubs printed with tiny cartoon stars. Her eyes are tired in a way that isn't dramatic, just constant. The kind of tired that's learned to keep moving. Can I help you? Gideon lifts his clipboard like it's a shield. Dr. Jonah Mercer, Urban Family Outreach Institute. We spoke on the phone about your participation. Her face shifts caution, loosening into a careful hope. Right. Yes. Come in. Sorry about the mess. Inside the house is modest but immaculate. Not perfect, loved. Mismatched furniture placed with intention. A vanilla candle trying to make the air feel warmer than it is. A small table with library books stacked in a neat tower, like someone is building a future out of borrowed pages. Maris moves like she's used to making space for other people. She's polite. She's guarded. She's trying to be brave without calling it bravery. Lena, sweetheart, Maris calls gently. We have a visitor. A pause. Then tiny footsteps across hardwood. Gideon's chest tightens before he even sees her. Lena appears in the doorway, 7 years old, golden hair, catching the lamplight eyes the color of summer sky after rain. She clutches a worn, stuffed rabbit with one ear permanently bent like it's been hugged through 1,000 nights. She wears a faded princess dress that's been washed with love and patience. Hi, she says, shy but polite. Not afraid. Just careful with strangers. Gideon crouches to her level. His voice comes out softer than he expects. Hello there, Lena. That's a very serious rabbit. Lena brightens. This is Captain Button. Excellent name, Gideon says, and something inside him aches because he can hear Evan in the humor, the warmth. Maris places a protective hand on Lena's shoulder, not controlling, just present. Grounding. Gideon nods, professional mask on. Thank you for letting me visit. I'm just here to learn about family routines and community support. Lena tilts her head. Mom says routines are how you don't fall apart. Maris exhales a small laugh, surprised by her child's blunt wisdom. She hears everything. Gideon smiles, but it wobbles, because Lena's smile, it's familiar, not identical. Worse, it's the kind of familiar that rewrites you. He keeps it together gently. What do you like to do after school? Lena hugs Captain Button tighter. I draw a lot. Maris's eyes flicker like that sentence holds more than crayons. Lena nods solemnly. Want to see my wall? Gideon's heart stutters. Yes, he says. I'd love to. Lena leads them down a narrow hallway, proud like a tiny tour guide. Gideon notices the quiet details adults miss: the hand-me-down sneakers placed neatly by the door, the school backpack hanging from a hook like it matters. Her room is small, warm, and bursting with color. Crayon galaxies, marker rainbows, a family of stick figures under a bright sun that refuses to be realistic. A wooden crate serves as a nightstand. Library books stacked like treasure. Curtains sewn from clearance fabric crooked in a charming way because someone made them, not bought them. Then Gideon sees it. On the wall opposite the bed is a drawing, careful lines, bold color, serious effort. A refrigerator, not the kind that hums quietly in a kitchen. This one is magnificent, tall silver doors, thrown wide shelves packed with everything a child imagines when she's trying not to ask for too much. Fruit, milk, eggs, cheese. A whole drawer labeled in careful letters, apples. At the bottom, a little drawn girl with yellow hair stands with arms open like she's hugging the abundance. Lena plants herself proudly in front of it. That's my dream fridge. Gideon's mouth goes dry. It's beautiful. Lena nods, matter of fact. It's always full. Those 4 words land gently and still crack something open. Maris stands in the doorway. Her hand covers her mouth for a second, then drops like she's embarrassed to be seen feeling anything. Gideon keeps his voice steady. Tell me about it. Lena points to the top shelf. That's ice cream. 3 flavors, then the apple drawer. Mom loves apples, but sometimes we wait. Gideon swallows. Lena points to another shelf. That's string cheese, lots, for lunches. She pauses, quieter now. The real fridge doesn't stay full, so I drew this one. A beat, then barely a whisper. Mom says dreams don't cost anything. Gideon looks at Maris, and Maris looks back like she's begging him without ever asking. Lena tugs Gideon's sleeve. Come see. The real one. The kitchen is clean and small. A second-hand fridge with yellowed edges and a dent that's been there long enough to feel permanent. Inside, a half carton of milk, a few eggs, wilted lettuce, condiments lined up like soldiers trying to fill empty space. Maris sets a kettle on the stove. Coffee, it's instant. Gideon nods, grateful for the normalness. That's perfect. Lena climbs onto a chair, opens a shoebox of drawings and starts flipping through them like she's presenting a gallery. Grocery store aisles drawn taller than skyscrapers. Price tags that make everything possible. A cart overflowing with bright colors. Someday, Lena says, me and Mom are gonna fill a whole cart. Maris's smile tightens. She doesn't want her child's hope to sound like a complaint. Gideon watches Lena's small hands, careful not to wrinkle the pages. The child doesn't act desperate. She acts considerate, like she's learned to protect her mother's pride. Gideon's disguise suddenly feels like an insult. He keeps his tone gentle. Your drawings are very detailed, Lena. Lena brightens. My dad taught me, before he got sick. Maris's spoon pauses mid-stir. She doesn't dramatize it. She just says softly, he passed away 2 years ago. No fear, no graphic pain, just the fact of grief wrapped in dignity. Gideon nods, throat tight. I'm so sorry. Lena taps the fridge drawing. I think he'd like this. He liked making magic. Gideon's pulse spikes, because Evan used to say that too. Magic, Gideon repeats quietly like a prayer he forgot he knew. Dinner is simple spaghetti. Not a pity meal, just a meal. Maris plates it, carefully measured like someone who respects every ingredient. Lena takes small bites, chatting about school, her teacher, a friend who moved away, an art project with glitter she's still finding in her hair. Then Gideon asks gently, like it's for research, Lena, what was your dad's name? Lena glances at Maris for permission. Maris nods once. His name was Evan, Lena says. Evan Harlow. Gideon's fingers go numb under the table. He keeps breathing like a man pretending his life isn't cracking open. And was that always his name? Gideon asks, careful. Lena frowns thoughtfully. Mom says he had a different name before, but he changed it to match ours, because he said family should sound the same. Maris's eyes lower. He believed in unity. Gideon's mouth goes dry. Do you know the name before Lena's face brightens with pride like she's answering a quiz correctly? Evan Vale. Silence. The room doesn't explode. No screaming, no scary music, just the soft hum of an old refrigerator and the sound of Gideon's heart forgetting how to lie. Because Evan Vale was his brother, and Gideon, who built towers of glass in Manhattan, has been searching for a ghost that was living right here, under a roof that leaks when it rains. He forces a smile for Lena. That's a strong name. Lena nods. Mom says I have his smile. Gideon looks at her. He can't speak. He just nods, because the truth is standing in front of him holding a stuffed rabbit. After dinner, Lena disappears and returns with a worn photo album wrapped in an old scarf like it's fragile. This is our Sunday book, she says proudly. We look at it after church. Maris sits close, her hand resting lightly on Lena's shoulder. Steady, not possessive. Protective in the healthiest way. Gideon turns the first page and sees a small wedding photo, Maris younger, Evan thinner, both smiling like they believed tomorrow would be kind. Gideon's breath catches. There's Evan older than Gideon remembers, but still Evan. Same crooked grin. Same eyes that always looked like they were holding a secret joke. Lena points to a hospital photo. That's when I was born. Dad cried a lot. Maris lets out a soft laugh. He did. He cried like the world finally made sense. Page after page, birthdays at home, handmade decorations, tiny joys stretched into full celebrations. Evan holding Lena on his shoulders, Evan drawing with her at the table, Evan looking at his daughter like she's the best thing he ever did. Gideon's throat tightens. Lena flips to a page of older pictures, Evan with a teenage boy. Mom said that boy is little Gideon, Lena says. Dad used to look at these and get quiet. Maris's jaw tightens with old sadness. Lena's voice stays gentle. He missed him. Gideon's hands tremble slightly. He keeps his face calm for Lena. But inside something collapses and reforms into one clear thought: Evan didn't stop loving him. Not even once. Lena yawns, cheeks rosy with sleep. Maris tucks her into bed with practiced tenderness. No drama, no fear, just safe routine. Gideon stands in the hallway watching the softness of it like a man who forgot soft things existed. When Lena is asleep, Maris returns to the living room. Her voice is quiet. Dr. Mercer, I should ask. Why are you really here? Gideon's disguise burns against his skin. He could lie. He's good at lying. But he's tired. He chooses the truth, just not all of it. I was looking for someone, he says. Someone I lost. Maris studies him, eyes sharp. People don't drive across states in the rain for research. Gideon nods. You're right. Maris doesn't accuse. She doesn't panic. She simply asks like a mother who has learned careful boundaries. Are you safe to have around my daughter? The question lands cleanly. Responsible. Necessary. Gideon meets her eyes. Yes. Always. Maris holds the silence a moment longer, measuring. Then she says softly, Lena trusts easily. But she remembers promises that don't come back. Gideon's chest aches. I won't make promises I can't keep. Maris nods once, then don't. Gideon's phone buzzes New York. Meetings, a different universe. He stares at it like it's meaningless paper. Tonight he sleeps in a motel 10 miles away. And doesn't sleep at all. Because a child drew a full refrigerator on a wall. And somehow drew a map back to his own guilt. At 9 a.m., Gideon returns to 19 Juniper Lane. No cap, no thrift jacket, a conservative suit, polished shoes, the version of himself the world recognizes. Maris opens the door and freezes. You look different. Lena appears behind her in pajamas, hair messy, rabbit tucked under her arm. Her face lights up. Dr. Mercer. Then confusion. Why are you dressed fancy? Is it picture day? Gideon kneels to Lena's height, voice careful. Lena, I wasn't honest yesterday. I'm sorry. Maris's posture shifts, protective alert, still calm. Responsible adult energy. Gideon looks at both of them. My name is Gideon Vale. Maris's eyes widen, not starstruck, just startled. Gideon continues steady. I came here searching for my brother. He says it like stepping off a cliff. Evan Vale. Maris goes pale. Her breath catches, but she doesn't spiral. She stays present. That's not possible, she whispers. Evan's brother was little Gideon. He took care of him. Gideon's throat tightens. He did. Lena's small voice cuts through the quiet. Are you little Gideon? Gideon's eyes sting. Yes, sweetheart. Lena stares at him, processing solemn. Then she says the simplest line in the world. Daddy cried about you. And Gideon feels his heart break in a way that makes room for healing. Maris sits, hands folded, steadying herself. If you're really Evan's brother, she says carefully, then you know he tried. Gideon nods, shame rising like heat. I know. He doesn't excuse himself. He doesn't blame Busy. He doesn't hide behind success. I blocked his number, Gideon admits, without listening. Maris's eyes fill not with rage, but with old grief. He wasn't calling for money, she says softly. He was calling because Lena learned to write her name. He was so proud he wanted to tell the only family he had left. Gideon presses his hands together, trying not to fall apart in front of them. Lena climbs off the couch and walks to him, small and certain. She wraps her arms around his waist like she's hugging a tree. Don't cry, Uncle Gideon, she whispers. Daddy's not sad anymore because you found us. No fear, no pressure. Just a child offering comfort like it's natural. Gideon crouches, carefully hugging her back. I'm sorry I was late. Lena pulls back and studies him. Are you really rich? Maris makes a soft sound, embarrassed by the bluntness. Gideon manages a small smile. Yes. Lena's eyes narrow with the serious wisdom of a child who has seen disappointment. But what if you leave? Gideon's voice turns gentle and firm. I won't make promises I can't keep. So here's what I can promise: I will show up. Again and again, and I'll earn your trust the right way. Maris watches him weighing. Finally, she says, prove who you are. Gideon nods. Okay. Maris disappears into her bedroom and returns with an envelope. Her hands tremble just slightly. Not fear, just the gravity of opening the past. She lays 3 photographs on the coffee table. The first, Evan with a teenage Gideon at a graduation. Evan's arm around him like a promise. The second, Christmas morning. Evan watching Gideon open a small gift, pride in every line of his face. The third, a college packing day, Evan handing Gideon a taped-up box, both of them trying to smile through something they can't name. Gideon stares. The memories rush in like a wave that finally found the shore. That's me, he whispers. That's us. Maris studies his face. Then she says something that lands like truth. You have the same eyes? And the way you hold your shoulders when you're nervous. Evan did that too. Lena leans forward, eyes wide. Mom, remember what you tell me? Sometimes God sends help when we need it. Maris swallows hard. Her voice is careful. If we let you into our lives, it has to be real. Lena can't handle another person who disappears. Gideon nods. I understand. Maris exhales, then starts slow. Relief hits Gideon like sunlight through clouds. Slow, he agrees. At your pace. Lena bounces slightly in her seat, suddenly hopeful again. Can we go grocery shopping? She asks, like it's the most logical first step in rebuilding a family. Gideon looks at Maris. Maris looks at Lena. And for the first time, the 3 of them share a small, stunned smile. The grocery store doors slide open, and Lena stops short. It's not a fantasy kingdom. It's fluorescent lights and carts and ordinary people. But to a child who has drawn abundance on a wall, It might as well be magic. It's bigger than my drawings, she whispers. Maris keeps close, not anxious, just attentive. Gideon takes a normal cart, not a spectacle, not a parade of wealth, just a cart. Lena points timidly. Apples, the good ones. Gideon lifts a bag. How many? Lena thinks carefully. 4. Gideon nods seriously, then adds more gently. How about 8? Your mom deserves apples that last. Lena's mouth opens in a silent wow, but she doesn't demand. She doesn't grab. She asks permission with her eyes. Maris watches Gideon's restraint, how he buys quality staples and a few small joys without turning it into a performance. In the dairy aisle, Lena hesitates at fancy yogurt. Maris starts to say no out of habit. Gideon says softly, "If it's okay with you." Maris pauses, then nods once. At cereal, Lena touches a box with a tiny prize advertised on the front. Her voice turns small. Dad used to say, "Someday, princess." Gideon kneels beside her. Then let's make someday today. He places one box in the cart, then another. 2 adventures, he says. Lena laughs, bright, surprised laughter that makes strangers smile in passing. Not pity, just joy. At checkout, Maris's posture stiffens. Accepting help is harder than surviving without it. Lena carefully places items on the belt like each one matters. The total appears $127.40. Not a fortune. Not a stunt. Just enough to let a fridge breathe. Gideon pays calmly. The cashier smiles at Lena. You picked good cereal. Lena beams. Gideon says gently, "She's my niece." The word lands warm in his mouth like it belongs there. Outside, cold air bites. Gideon loads bags into the car with quiet efficiency. Maris finally speaks, voice low. This is generous, but we can't live like this waiting for someone else's card. Gideon nods. I respect that. I'm not here to replace you. I'm here to show up beside you. Maris's eyes narrow slightly. So what do you want? Gideon answers honestly. A chance. To earn back what I broke. Maris looks down at her hands. Evan loved Lena more than anything. If you're going to be in her life, you don't get to be halfway. I won't be, Gideon says. They drive back in thoughtful silence. Not awkward, just full. At home, they unpack groceries. The old fridge fills shelf by shelf like someone is putting color back into a black and white scene. Lena stands in front of the open door, eyes shining. It looks like my drawing, she whispers. Not exactly, but closer. Maris turns away quickly, wiping a tear like she's annoyed it exists. Gideon watches both of them, heart heavy with determination. This is not the ending. This is the beginning. He says softly to Maris, not to Lena, I'm not going to rush you. Maris nods. Good. Lena closes the fridge gently like it's precious. Then she looks up at Gideon and asks the question that matters most, will you come back? Gideon doesn't overpromise. He only says the truest thing he can. Whenever your mom says it's okay. Night falls. The house quiets into its familiar rhythm. Maris reads Lena a bedtime story, soft voice, steady warmth. Gideon stands in the doorway, not intruding, just present. When the story ends, Lena sits up with sudden seriousness. Can we do the star wish? Maris smiles gently. We can. They walk to the window where a single star punches through the clouds. Maris explains to Gideon quietly. Every night, Lena makes one wish. It helps her feel safe. Lena looks up at Gideon. You can ask me what it is. Gideon's throat tightens. Okay. What do you wish for tonight? Lena thinks hard like she's negotiating with the universe. I wish Dad knows you found us, she says carefully. And I wish our fridge stays full like today. A pause. Then she glances at Maris softer. And I wish Mom doesn't have to be brave all the time. Maris inhales sharply but holds it together because that's what she does. Lena turns back to Gideon. And I wish you're happy too. because I think you were sad for a long time. Gideon looks away, blinking hard. Maris watches him with understanding, not judgment. You don't have to fix everything tonight, she says quietly. I'm not trying to, Gideon whispers. I just don't want to waste more time. Lena yawns again, rabbit tucked under her chin. Maris guides her back to bed. In the hallway, Maris pauses with Gideon. Next weekend, she says. If you want. There's an art museum downtown. Lena's been asking. Gideon's face softens. I'd love that. Maris nods slow. Okay, one step. Gideon nods back. One step. And the house, for the first time in a long time, feels like it's holding its breath for something good. The next weeks don't become a montage of instant miracles. They become a pattern. Gideon shows up on weekends, always on time, always calm, always asking Maris first. He takes Lena to the museum. He listens to her describe paintings like she's translating secret messages. He buys her a sketchbook, not fancy, just sturdy, and asks her to draw what she feels, not what she thinks people want. Maris watches quietly, letting trust grow the right way, slow-earned. One afternoon, Lena brings Gideon to the wall fridge, drawing again. I think I want to draw something new, she says. Gideon sits on the floor with her sleeves rolled up like he belongs in the mess of crayons and dreams. What do you want to draw? He asks. Lena thinks. A table. A table with people, she says. People who come back. Gideon's chest tightens. That's a good picture. Maris stands in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes wet, but her face is steady. Later in the kitchen, Maris speaks softly while Lena colors in the other room. You know Evan worked himself to the bone, she says. Not because he wanted pity, because he wanted Lena to feel normal. Gideon nods. I know. Maris's voice trembles once, then steadies. He still loved you. Gideon closes his eyes. That's the part that hurts the most. Maris looks at him sharp and kind at once. Then honor it. Not with money, with presence. Gideon nods. I will. That night, Lena hands Gideon a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands, one with a bunny, one with long hair, one in a suit. Above them, a small star. She writes carefully at the bottom, Forever Weekends. Gideon laughs softly, then almost cries. He doesn't. He just says, I'll frame it. And he means it. The first time Gideon Vale says the word move, he doesn't say it like a billionaire. He says it like a man asking permission to breathe. They're at Maris's kitchen table on a Saturday morning, the kind of morning that used to be a luxury and is now a ritual. The light coming through the small window is pale and winter thin. Lena sits at the corner of the table with Captain Button tucked under her elbow, drawing a row of apples so carefully they look like little red planets. Every now and then, she glances at the refrigerator like she's checking to make sure yesterday's miracle didn't evaporate overnight. Maris pours coffee into mismatched mugs and sets one in front of Gideon. She doesn't fuss over him. She doesn't perform gratitude. She treats him like a person who has to earn his place one quiet weekend at a time. Gideon wraps his hands around the mug, letting the warmth press into his palms. I've been thinking, he says carefully. Maris doesn't look up right away. She stirs sugar into her cup with a spoon that's been used so much the metal has gone dull. That usually means you're about to ask for something. She replies not unkindly, just honest. He nods. Yeah. Lena hums as she colors in a leaf. The crayon makes soft scratching sounds, tiny, steady music in the room. Gideon takes a breath. I don't want to bulldoze your life. I don't want to show up and turn everything upside down because I can. That isn't love. That's control. Maris finally looks at him. Her eyes are sharp, tired, smart. The eyes of someone who has learned the difference between help and a hook. So what do you want? She asks. Gideon doesn't say, I want to save you. He doesn't say, I want to fix it. He doesn't even say, I want to make it right. Instead, he asks something simpler. What would make your life safer, he says. Not bigger, not flashy, just safer. Maris's jaw tightens because the word safer is a trap for people like her. It's a doorway into the humiliating assumption that she hasn't been doing enough, that she needs rescuing. But Gideon's tone holds no judgment, only respect. Maris glances toward Lena, who is now drawing a table with 3 chairs, little stick legs lined up neatly. She's not listening until you realize children always listen the way sunlight always finds a crack. Maris answers quietly. A neighborhood where she can walk to school without me feeling my heart in my throat. A school with a real art program. Less scrambling. Gideon nods slowly like he's taking notes with his whole body. And you, he asks. Not as a mom, as Maris. Maris blinks, caught off guard by being seen as a person. I want to finish my degree, she admits, voice small for a second. Social work. I'm close, but, money, time, life. Gideon looks down at his hands. I can help with that. Maris's shoulders stiffen, and that's where it gets complicated. I know, he says quickly. That's why I'm asking, not announcing. The silence hangs for a moment, gentle but heavy. Then Lena pipes up without looking away from her drawing. Mom says help is okay if it doesn't make you feel smaller. Maris closes her eyes for half a second, as if she's embarrassed that her own words have a witness. Gideon's chest tightens. Lena's right. Maris exhales. I'm not letting you buy my child's love. I don't want to, Gideon says. I want to buy time back. For you, for her, for us. And I want to do it in a way that keeps your dignity intact. He reaches into his bag and sets a folder on the table, not dramatic. No glossy logo, no grand reveal. Just paper. I spoke to an education counselor, he says. There's a scholarship structure. Not Gideon writes a check and everyone claps. A real program. You qualify. The paperwork would be in your name. Maris's gaze narrows. You did that without asking me. Gideon flinches. You're right. I should have asked first. I'm sorry. He slides the folder back like he's willing to let it disappear if she says no. Maris studies him, watching for the billionaire reflex, the impatience, the ego. But Gideon just sits there still and waits. Lena finishes her apple row and adds a tiny label, Mom's drawer. Then she draws a sun in the corner and writes with careful 7-year-old letters, safe. Maris's voice softens. Okay, we can look at it. Gideon's eyes sting, but he keeps his composure. Thank you. That afternoon, they drive to see a house outside Columbus. Not an estate, not a gate, no marble lions, no fountain. Just a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, clean sidewalks, a yard big enough for chalk drawings and summer laughter. Lena steps inside and freezes. The kitchen is bright. The refrigerator is modern stainless steel, humming like a promise. Lena opens it carefully, like she's afraid it might be a trick. It's empty because the house is empty. And still, Lena whispers, It's okay. We can fill it. Gideon kneels beside her. Only if your mom says yes. Maris stands in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes wet and furious at her own softness. Slow, she reminds him. We do this slow. Gideon nods. Slow. Lena walks to a spare bedroom, turns in a slow circle, then points to a blank wall with the seriousness of an artist making a decision. That wall, she says. That's my mural wall. Gideon smiles, gentle. Approved. Maris looks at Gideon, and for the first time there's something new in her eyes. Not dependence, not gratitude. Trust beginning. And Gideon feels it like warmth spreading through a man who thought he was made of glass. They don't go to the cemetery right away. Gideon doesn't rush grief like a timeline on a calendar. He waits until Maris brings it up, until she chooses it instead of enduring it. It happens on a Sunday afternoon when the sky is a soft gray and the wind is calm enough to feel respectful. Lena sits on the living room rug with a pack of colored pencils drawing a careful picture of a house with 2 windows on her bedroom and a bowl of apples on the table. Captain Button is placed nearby like an assistant who takes his job seriously. Maris folds laundry on the couch, moving in quiet rhythms. Gideon sits in a chair that creaks slightly when he shifts hands folded, trying not to look like someone waiting for a verdict. Maris breaks the silence gently. "We can go today, if you want." Gideon's throat tightens. "Only if you're sure." Maris nods once. Lena's been asking. Lena looks up at the word go, eyes widening. To see Dad, Maris smiles with tenderness that doesn't crumble her strength. "Yes, baby." Lena nods like she's prepared. Like she's been prepared for years. Gideon watches that and feels something twist inside him, not pain exactly, but awe. A child shouldn't have to be this practiced at holding loss, and yet Lena holds it with dignity, not despair. They drive in quiet. No dramatic music. No speech-making. Just a family learning how to sit together in the same car. When they arrive, Gideon carries a small bouquet, simple, not extravagant. Maris carries nothing but her composure. Lena carries a rolled-up drawing held in both hands like it's a sacred scroll. The cemetery is peaceful. Winter trees stand tall and bare, not tragic, just honest. Maris leads them to Evan's grave. It's modest, clean, a name carved into stone, Evan Harlow. Dates that are too close together for a man who lived too hard and too kindly. Lena kneels carefully, as if she's been taught that the ground here deserves gentleness. "Hi, Dad," she says softly. "It's me." She lays her drawing down. It shows their new neighborhood idea: sidewalks, a small yard, a bright kitchen, and 3 figures holding hands. Above them is a star. Maris kneels too. Her fingers brush the stone like she's touching a memory. Gideon stays standing for a moment watching them. Then he kneels. Not because it's dramatic, because it's right. He rests his hand near the name, not on it, just close, respectful. "Evan," he says quietly. "I'm here." His voice cracks a little, and he hates that it cracks because he's spent years training himself to sound unbreakable. But the cemetery doesn't require strength. It requires truth. "I'm late," Gideon continues, eyes fixed on the carved letters. "And I'm sorry. I don't have a smart speech. I don't have a business plan that can undo 8 years." A pause. Maris listens without interrupting. Lena listens without fear. "I found your family," Gideon says, "and they're incredible. You did that. You left love behind even when you didn't have enough energy left for yourself." Lena scoots closer to Gideon and slips her small hand into his. Easy, natural, like she's done it 100 times. "I think Dad can hear you," Lena whispers. Sometimes I feel him smiling. Maris's breath catches, but she doesn't correct her. She doesn't dismiss it. She lets her child's comfort exist. Gideon swallows hard. "If you can hear me, Evan, I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to show up." He turns his head slightly, looking at Maris. "I'm going to respect her. I'm going to follow her rules. I'm going to earn this." Maris's eyes are wet, but her face is steady. She nods once, permission, not surrender. Lena looks at the headstone and begins her update like she's delivering a news report. "Dad, guess what? I have 2 windows now. 2, and Mom is gonna help other families. Like, for real." She points to the drawing, "And our fridge is gonna stay full. Not like stuffed full, just full enough." Gideon smiles through the tightness in his throat. That sentence is so Lena. Thoughtful, balanced, not greedy, not desperate. Then Lena turns to Gideon with a question she asks often now, because healing isn't a one-time speech. It's repetition. It's reassurance. "Do you think Dad knows we're happy?" she asks. Gideon answers without hesitation, because he's learned the weight of consistent words. "I think he knows," Gideon says softly. "And I think he's proud. Of you, of your mom, of how brave you both were. Lena nods, satisfied. Then she adds, like it's obvious, and I think he's proud of you too. Because you came back. Gideon closes his eyes for a moment. Not to hide, to hold it. They leave flowers. They leave the drawing. They leave with peace that doesn't erase grief, but makes room beside it. On the way back, Maris drives with both hands steady on the wheel. After a long silence, she says quietly, "He would have wanted Lena to have choices." Gideon nods. "She will." Maris glances at him. "Not because you're rich, because you're here." Gideon looks out the window at the winter trees and feels something he hasn't felt in a decade. Not pride, not power, belonging. The art studio is finished on a Thursday. Gideon doesn't announce it with balloons. He doesn't put his name on a plaque. He doesn't turn it into a surprise party that forces Maris to perform gratitude. He simply invites them over after school and says, "I'd like to show you something." Lena walks into the spare room and freezes. Sunlight pours through the window, bright and clean. A child-sized easel. Shelves of neatly organized supplies, paper brushes, paint sets, colored pencils. A stool that fits her perfectly, like someone considered her comfort, instead of just the aesthetics. And one wall left blank white wide, waiting. Lena whispers, "My mural wall." Maris's hand covers her mouth for a second. Her eyes turn shiny. Gideon watches her with respect. "It's yours," he says to Lena. "You get to decide what lives on it." Lena steps closer, touching the wall with her fingertips like she's greeting a new friend. Then she turns serious. "I want to paint the fridge." Maris's face tightens, not because she's ashamed of the past, but because it still hurts to remember. Gideon stays calm, okay. Lena grabs a brush with careful hands. She dips it into silver paint and begins. A refrigerator forms on the wall, tall, bright, with doors open wide. But as she paints, something changes in her expression. Not sadness, not fear, thoughtfulness. She pauses, brush hovering. Gideon doesn't speak. He doesn't steer the moment. He gives her space, the kind of space her father would have given her. Lena turns to Maris. "Mom, can you come here?" Maris steps closer, wiping her hands on her jeans like she suddenly feels unprepared to be part of art. Lena points to the fridge shelves. "Should I paint it full?" Maris blinks. "It's your painting, baby." Lena looks at Gideon. "If I paint it full, that means I still need it." Gideon's chest tightens. He understands immediately. The drawing used to be a bridge over scarcity, a way to hope without asking. Lena's voice stays soft, steady. "But our fridge is already full now. Like, enough." She looks back at the mural wall. "So I'm not going to make it the main thing anymore." Maris's eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't break. "Okay," Maris whispers. "Okay." Lena begins painting something else beside the fridge. A table, 3 chairs, a bowl of apples in the center. Then Lena paints a small, stuffed rabbit sitting on one chair like he belongs, Captain Button immortalized with a tiny bent ear. Maris lets out a breath that sounds like relief. Gideon watches Lena paint the table legs, the plates, the small details, a napkin, a cup, a little star in the window above the table. Lena steps back when she's done. "I used to draw stuff I wanted," she says quietly like she's admitting a secret. "Now I draw stuff I have." Maris presses a hand to her chest. Her voice shakes once. "Lena." Lena looks at her mother, then at Gideon. "It's not just food," she says. "It's people." Gideon kneels, bringing himself to her height. "That's the truest thing I've ever heard." Lena grins, suddenly bright and unburdened. "I'm also a poet." Maris laughs, and it comes out real warm, surprised, free. Gideon smiles too, but his eyes sting. Lena turns and writes on the mural wall with careful paint strokes. Letters that wobble because she's 7 but still proud and readable, "My forever table." Maris whispers, "We should take a picture." Gideon pulls out his phone, but he doesn't post it, doesn't share it, doesn't turn it into a story for strangers. He takes the picture for one reason, because healing should have proof. Not for the internet, for the heart. Later, when Lena is washing her brushes at the sink, she looks at Gideon over her shoulder. Uncle Gideon, yes, sweetheart. She hesitates, then asks the question that matters most. You're not gonna stop coming, right? Gideon answers the only way that counts. Not with glittering promises, with calm certainty. I'm here, he says, and I'm staying. Lena nods like that settles it, because to a child, consistency is the loudest love. Maris watches Gideon from across the kitchen, her expression softening. Not because she needs him, because she finally believes him. And in the quiet hum of an ordinary house filled with art supplies, apples, and people who come back, Gideon feels something become true in his bones. Some dreams don't belong on walls forever. Some dreams deserve to become a life. The paperwork does not arrive with drama. No ominous music. No heavy speeches. Just a slim folder on Maris's kitchen table set there quietly between a bowl of apples and Lena's homework notebook. Lena sits cross-legged on the floor, carefully cutting colored paper into stars. Captain Button supervises from a nearby chair, his bent ear casting a familiar shadow. The house smells like toast and clean laundry, ordinary safe. Gideon clears his throat. This isn't about changing anything today. Maris studies him, alert but calm. Then what is it about protection? Gideon says simply, not ownership, not control, just certainty. Maris opens the folder. Legal language. Calm, precise, respectful. Guardianship planning only in case something ever happens. No deadlines, no pressure. Everything reversible, everything discussed. She exhales slowly. I've spent years making sure Lena never feels abandoned, Maris says. I can't sign anything that makes her think she's being passed along. Gideon nods. That's exactly why this exists, so she never has to wonder who shows up. Lena looks up from the floor. Is this the what-if papers? Maris smiles faintly. Yes, baby. Lena nods, satisfied. Okay. What if papers are good? They make things less scary. Maris's eyes sting. She hadn't realized how much her child understood. The pen rests in Maris's hand for a long moment. Then she signs, not with fear, not with relief, but with resolve. Gideon doesn't celebrate. He doesn't say thank you like he's won something. He only says, I won't ever forget what this means. Lena climbs onto the couch and holds out a piece of paper she's been working on. 3 careful words, written slowly, you came back. Gideon stares at it, then folds it once gently, like it's something sacred. That night, after Lena is asleep, Maris and Gideon sit on the back steps watching the porch light glow against the dark. You know, Maris says quietly, Evan worried about you, even at the end. Gideon swallows. I know now. He believed you'd be okay. Maris continues. He just wished he could have heard your voice one more time. Gideon closes his eyes. Then I'll make sure his daughter always hears mine. No vows, no theatrics, just a promise lived forward. 6 months later, the kitchen hums with gentle life. Lena stands on a small stool arranging apples and oranges into a pattern that only makes sense to her. She hums while she works a soft tune that sounds like safety. Morning, Uncle Gideon, she says without turning around. Morning, artist, Gideon replies, sipping coffee. Maris appears in the doorway dressed for work, tailored, confident, steady. Her new job with County Family Services starts today, helping families who once looked like hers. Lena beams. Mom looks important. Maris laughs. I am important. I have a lunch badge. Lena nods seriously. That's huge. They eat breakfast together. No rush. No anxiety about running out. The refrigerator closes with a soft, confident sound, full enough always. On the way to school, Lena buckles herself in and looks at Gideon. You're coming to the art show on Friday, right? I already cleared my schedule, Gideon says. Lena narrows her eyes playfully. Even New York, especially New York. She grins, satisfied. After school, Lena paints in her studio while Gideon works nearby, answering emails without urgency. The mural wall has grown tables, parks, stars, people holding hands. No refrigerators anymore. Maris comes home tired but smiling. They cook dinner together, laughing when Gideon burns the garlic slightly. Lena watches them like she's memorizing something important. That night, during the Star Wish ritual, Lena looks up at the sky and speaks with quiet confidence. I wish every kid has a place they're not scared to sleep. Maris squeezes her hand. Lena adds softer. And I wish Uncle Gideon doesn't feel guilty forever. Gideon kneels beside her. I'm learning, Lena nods. Good. Dad wouldn't want you to be sad all the time. Gideon looks at Maris. She nods once agreement without words. Later, when the house is quiet, Gideon stands in the doorway of Lena's room and watches her sleep, Captain Button tucked beneath her chin. Not as a savior. Not as a hero. As family. The drawing appears without ceremony. Lena doesn't announce it, doesn't wave it around, doesn't ask for praise. She simply places the paper on the kitchen table while Gideon is reading emails he no longer feels rushed to answer. Uncle Gideon, she says softly, I made a new one. He looks down. It isn't a refrigerator. That alone makes his breath catch. It's a kitchen warm open alive. A wooden table sits at the center, solid and steady. 3 chairs surround it, each one carefully drawn legs straight balanced. On the table is a bowl of apples, colored with deliberate care, red and gold, like something precious but ordinary at the same time. Light pours in through a window. Outside, there's a hint of sky. Above it all, in the corner of the page, Lena has drawn a small star, quiet, watchful, familiar. At the bottom, written slowly in careful block letters, My Forever Family. Gideon doesn't speak right away. He studies the picture, as if it's a map, one that explains how he got here and why he's staying. Every line holds intention. Nothing is crowded. Nothing is missing. This one, he says finally, voice low and steady, is my favorite. Lena smiles, not proud, just content. I don't draw hungry stuff anymore. Maris, washing dishes at the sink, turns around. She wipes her hands on a towel, eyes softening when she sees the drawing. She really doesn't, Maris says quietly. It just stopped. Lena shrugs like it's no big deal. I don't need it now. They eat dinner together that night, nothing fancy. Pasta salad, apples sliced thin. The refrigerator opens and closes with an easy confidence, no longer something to be checked, counted, or worried over. Lena talks about school, about an art project, about a new girl who cried during lunch because she didn't know where to sit. So I sat with her, Lena says matter-of-factly. Nobody should eat alone. Maris reaches over and squeezes her daughter's hand. Gideon feels something settle in his chest. Not excitement, not pride, but peace. The quiet kind that doesn't ask for proof. Later, after Lena is tucked into bed with Captain Button beneath her chin, the house grows still. Gideon stands in the hallway for a moment, listening to the steady rhythm of sleep coming from behind her door. Maris joins him, leaning lightly against the wall. You know, she says softly, there were nights when I stayed awake wondering if I was doing enough, if she'd remember the hard parts more than the love. Gideon nods. She remembers the love. Maris looks at him. You changed our lives. He shakes his head gently. You protected her long enough for me to find my way back. Maris considers that, then allows herself a small smile. Maybe both can be true. They sit at the kitchen table for a while without speaking. No tension, no urgency. Just the sound of a home at rest.